And I'm here with this morning a very interesting person this morning to our audience and many people. I'm here with an author who I've become very familiar with very quickly, Bill Pack from Montana. How are you doing this morning?
Good, thanks.
You're welcome. For many people who don't know who you are and who have either or kind of just heard your name a couple times, who is Bill Pack?
Well, we've got an hour, so I'll take a lot of time. But I'm a kid who grew up in poverty in rural Montana, outside of a very small town on a river, and grew up in a difficult situation. Dropped out of high school. Well, I left home when I was 15. Was emancipated. Dropped out of high school halfway through my junior year, and did a lot of odd jobs like driving truck, attending bar, things of that sort. Ended up being hired by a major brokerage firm and going to Wall Street when I was 21, and became a very senior executive in the biggest financial company on earth. And then when I was 43, I did all that with a GED. And when I was 43, I got sick and decided to change my life, and went to college, became an archaeologist, and ended up writing a novel that's was my life's dream. So.
You again, very wide wide start and timeline of your life.
Right.
If you can go into detail with the steps,
Sure.
What got you from your small town Montana to where you're sitting before us now?
Yeah. I was born in a town called Roundup, Montana, and Roundup was a very small coal and cattle town. It started out as a cattle town in the 1880s, and then they discovered coal, did underground coal mining. My parents did odd jobs. There were four of us in the house. We lived a lot of the time in a house that had been abandoned down by the river. We moved for a while to a ghost town and back to Roundup, a ghost town called Hanover, which actually the buildings no longer exist now, and back, and really kind of got by. I mean, if we ate meat, it's because we shot it or caught it out of the river.
So there's no chance to run to the store or anything if something was spoiled or anything?
Oh no, there was a store nearby. The town had one grocery store. We didn't live in town, but we could run it for groceries if we needed to. But when it came to things like meat and produce, we pretty much produced our own. But we didn't know any different. It was great. We ate deer, elk, antelope, things like that all the time that I was growing up. But the building we lived in my youth was a three-room building. So the room in the middle is where everything happened. It's where the coal stove was. You'd call it a wood stove, but it was a coal mine community, so people used coal more than wood. And a big iron stove. You took baths on Sunday evening in a galvanized tub in the middle of the kitchen floor. And, you didn't want to be the last guy to take a bath because you're heating buckets of water on the kitchen stove and pouring it in. And the kids all slept in one room on one side, and my parents slept in the room on the other. We had an outhouse. And, there was no indoor bathroom at the time, and it was a different alternative upbringing, particularly for my generation. It was, things in Roundup are always 30 years ago, and when I was growing up in the late 50s and 60s, it was 30 years ago from then, and so it was very much like growing up maybe in the 30s for what my parents' generation would have experienced if they were poor.
So it was, very rough. By our standards, very rough living. It's very, basically very menial. You had very little to work with to begin with. No internet, no phone.
Oh no, God, the internet hadn't even thought of. But even if it had, there were no conveniences like that. We did have electricity, so that was okay. And we were only about 4 or 5 miles, maybe a little more from town. Mm-hmm. We did the classic stuff where you walk to the bus depot where the bus picks you up in the morning. It wasn't a bus depot. We walked to the bus stop for the school kids from the number 2 and number 3 coal mines. And the bus stop was a bar outside of town, and it was owned by a guy named Tony who used to get up in the morning and open the bar for the kids to come in the bar. It still smelled like the night before, but it was a wonderful thing. It was civic duty at its best. he gave kids a warm place to be, and the town appreciated it very much. You know, we waited there for the bus. That's where we got dropped off after school as well. But yeah, it was what now would be considered a deprived upbringing. I don't know at the time there was great consciousness about it being a deprived upbringing, because if you're in an environment like that from the time that you're born, and you know other people in that same environment, you don't have a sense of being extremely low on the socioeconomic order, or about it being particularly inconvenient. It's just the way life is.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times when we ate rice and ketchup soup.
Rice and ketchup. Explain, what is that, by the way?
It's, if you cook rice and you don't drain the water out of it, and you put ketchup in, you've got rice and ketchup soup. But I mean, there are times when you're on you're on the last of your budget. But there are people living like that now, and they're not all rural. As a matter of fact, probably more of them are urban than rural.
College kids, it sounds like.
Well, college kids, yeah, we didn't have top ramen, but college kids live on top ramen now. So.